today's tip is that everyone is a genius in an up market. What does that mean? What do you what does that mean to you guys? Right? Everyone who was investing in crypto was a freaking genius, weren't they? Until they were not, right? Everyone who was investing in the stock market was a freaking genius until the stock market went down 20% this year. Everyone who's been investing in the real estate market for the last 10 years has done what? Has seen what? Has seen nothing but an incredibly strong market. This market in Texas turned around roughly mid-2011. So if anyone you know has been investing for less than 11 years, what do you know about them? They are not what's called a full cycle real estate investor. What does that mean to be a full cycle real estate investor, and why would you care? Got to have the stomach for the ups and the downs, right? Does that mean the stomach for steak or ramen noodles? Because that's what it can look like, right? What else might that mean? Yeah.
It means that you have to have insight in order to
insight.
think on the market adjustments.
Could that also be said as perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah, perspective. Could also be said as having lived through it and survived through it and know where the potholes are and know how to avoid them. What's one of the best ways to avoid a pothole when you're in a changing market? What did you say? Plan for it. Vary risk or know your risk, so manage your risk. Yeah, what else? What's one of the best ways to manage your risk? Be holding a ton of cash. The name of the game is liquidity. Yes? Yes. Yeah. Because you might be thinking that, this is a great market. My neighbor's house was on and off the market in about 2.5 minutes. Right? But what if your house is not that lucky house because the interest rates have more than doubled in the last 8 months? Right? What does that mean that you really need a lot of? Whenever I point to you, sir, what's your name?
My name's
Andrew. Just say cash.
Cash.
Wonderful. Okay. Cash. Cash is king in an uncertain market. Cash is king in a down market. And Phil Grove. Phil Grove is going to be joining us at some point tonight. We just had a little flicker on the screen, so it was in and out super quick, but just want to make sure you're aware of it. We may have a little cable that needs to be adjusted. So everyone's a genius in an up market. So this is where this comes into play. How many of you guys are considering lending? Anybody in here considering, like, I want to lend my money? No one. Okay, one. So how many of you guys are considering maybe investing with someone else, like in a commercial investment, right? Commercial investments? Okay, good, yeah. So some of you guys might be looking at that as an option as well. And there are certain things to look out for when you are lending to someone or investing with someone, which is typically what we do in our commercial transactions. So you want to look for those full cycle investors, the investors who know how to survive and know how to thrive whenever the market is changing, right? And this is true for anything that we're doing, right? And if you are working with an investor or lending to an investor or doing, maybe a syndication, or you're looking at investing in a syndication, I'd ask the syndicator, the sponsor, the co-sponsor, and the key principals, hey, how long have you been doing this? Because sometimes people will say, I've been wildly successful. Fantastic. I love wildly successful people. I only want to invest in wildly successful. Now, how long is it exactly that you've been wildly successful? Well, for the last 5 years, since I've been doing this. Wonderful. What do you know about them? They may not know what it takes to get through a tough market. So I would only look for investors with high cash, also known as liquidity, right? So those are the folks that I'm looking for. And I had another investor, a colleague of mine, said, it was so awesome. He said, so I wrote it up here a little differently. You want to look for investors who have grit. The way he said it, he said, you don't want to loan to any wussies. And I'm like, Tom, I'm just curious. And I walked out with my notepad. Now, what is the technical definition of a wussy? You know, it's like, how do you define that, right? Is anybody in here a Game of Thrones fan? Okay. What do we know about the Lannisters? Season 5, you were out after that. It's like Jon Snow died, he came back. It's like it jumped the shark. It's over, right? Okay, I understand. But how many of you guys are familiar with the motto that the Lannisters had? A Lannister always pays his debts. Who do you want to lend to? People with cash and Lannisters. People with grit. People who always pay their debts. And what I loved about the Lannisters, they would actually even pay their debts in advance. Like, hey, I need you to go take that dude's head off. Like, here's a little cash. Like, go make it happen, right? Go make it rain heads, you know. So look for investors with grit. Look for investors that understand their statement of cash flows, right? But can also go beyond that, which is what? Forecasting what the cash flows will be. Because sometimes what you see is you'll have an investor who is wildly successful and has been amazing over the last 3 years, has multiple projects going, and one of those projects does not sell, one of those projects does not finish on time, one of those projects gets red tagged, and they realize they've got to go and redo some work, and they've got to reinvest a lot more money than what they originally thought into it. What happens? What happens to their cash flows? And they're eating steak instead of noodles. Instead of noodles. What does that mean for you? What does that mean for your project? They need to understand what their financial situation will look like if their deal does not fly off the market. Ask them what that looks like. And this is a painful exercise. And I'll tell you that my husband and I, because we have been through multiple market cycles, we have done a lot of these, right? Statement of cash flows doesn't matter a whole lot when you're investing and houses are flying off the market. But when the housing market starts to slow down or starts to slow or starts to be uncertain, right? This is when it matters more than anything. And also having a discussion in advance. Well, what happened if plan A doesn't work out? And I'll tell you that I recently invested in a syndication. And this was probably when I invested in it about 3 months ago. And we were talking about the interest rate variability, because when you're investing in a syndication or apartment deal, what's one of the first things that the syndicator wants to do? Clean up the property, right? And then they want to refinance it. So as I'm looking back on it now, 3 months later, okay, one of the things that was said, was, when the rates come back down. Yeah. Quote, end quote. Guys, please write this down. I don't think the rates are ever going to come back down to where they were 9 months ago. Yeah. So if you find some syndicator who is saying that to you, be careful. Now, I mean, but that was a discussion, and that should be a discussion with every syndication that you have, because I love it when they talk about Chairman Powell going full Volcker. That sounds like it's not funny at all, actually. I don't know why I'm laughing about it. But you better hope that refinance happens as soon as it possibly can, right? So that you can stabilize your cash flows out of that transaction, right? Because are rents going up? Rents are going up, right? But are rents going up at the same rate that interest rates are going up? And the answer is no. Okay, so speed is very important here. So we had that discussion 3 months ago. Well, what happens if plan A does not work? And so we did sensitivity analysis on it, right? Best case, worst case, most likely case, right? So I'd highly recommend that you do that as well. If you are considering lending to another investor on maybe a fix and flip that they have, there's a lending term called cross-collateralization. What does that mean? It helps you protect your cash. How does it do that? distributing your risk. It lowers a lender's loan to value, because instead of giving a $300,000 loan on a one $500,000 property, you might be giving a $300,000 loan on one $500,000 property, plus they're willing to lever up maybe another property that they have that's also in that 300,000 range, right? Does that help you as a lender? Yes. Does that reduce your risk as a lender? Yes. When we are in an uncertain, risky environment, what do we want to do? Manage our risk. Yeah. When I point to you, you said risk first time. And just, if I remember who you are, and I'm just going to point to you, just say the same thing all over again. So, so consider cross collateralization of your lien to lower your risk. And then this was a quote from my friend Tom. Their failure on a loan is whose problem? That'd be yours. That'd be yours. So please have these discussions in advance. And the motivational talk that I'll be performing tonight is now over. All right, seriously. So considering your own fix and flip. So some of you guys are going to be lending your money. Some of you guys are going to be joining syndication. Some of you guys are going to be doing your own fix and flips, right? So if that's the case, you need to be a risk manager, which means pick the right projects. Pick the right projects. Is now the time to go, $150,000 remodel while Chairman Powell's going full Volcker? No. Maybe not. But what do we know about, and let's say hypothetically, and some people will say like, well, we had two back-to-back quarters of reduction in GDP, which means we're in a recession. And how long, what do we know about recessions? 10 months, usually less than 2 years. Most Janet's like, I'll take the 10 months. No, don't you, what you ever used to, just close your part of the mouth. I'm just going to go with 10 months over here. But usually they're 2 years or less. So what's interesting about building a house in Austin is about how long does it take? About 18 months to 2 years, right? Because the permitting department and the inspection department is on your side. No, right? Not really, not really. But if you're looking at something that is more like a buy, fix, and flip, make sure to pick the right projects. What are the right projects that we're looking for right now when we're in an uncertain market? Paint carpet, in and out, right? In and out, in and out. Buy it right. This is my favorite for all of my new investors. My new investors usually the first deal that you overpay on is your first deal. When in reality, the only deal that you should never overpay on is your first deal. Okay? Why is that? So there's this new investor optimism that is so adorable, right? Think about it. What does it look like? I've never done this before, so of course I'm going to get the highest ARV that's ever hit the market in this entire neighborhood. Makes sense, right? Makes sense. Oh, I've never done this before, laid carpet, done electrical work with duct tape. The remodel, I'm not going to have any surprises in the remodel, right? No. I've seen HGTV. I know how these things go, right? And I'm not going to have any no project surprises. Plumbing under the slab is going to be a-okay, and I'm going to and if it's wrong, I'm going to find out before I do all of my flooring, right? And then my contractor, of course, is going to be a saint. A Tejano music playing saint. Yeah? Is that how that works? Come on. Come on. Right? The first project that you're going to get punched in the face in is going to be the project that you overpaid on the buy. As real estate investors, we make our money on the buy. If we buy it right, if we manage it right, if we follow that timeline, right, we're going to make money. But if we buy it wrong, we're going to get ourselves in a fair amount of trouble. So do not overpay in a slowing or uncertain market where house values increases. Right now, house value increases, they're still going up year over year, but they're slowing. But we're in a kind of this double whammy situation where House values are slowing, right? But what's going on with labor and materials? They're going up. You kind of want it to be just the opposite, right? So get the right financing. Subject to, how many of you guys are familiar with buying subject to the existing financing? Okay, a couple of you guys, right? So a few of you know how to make a dollar holler. Okay, every single one of my dollars, I want to holler. And using the subject to method is the exact way to be able to do that. And we'll spend a little time talking about that as we go through the presentation tonight. How many of you guys are familiar or know that you can invest in your IRA? Okay, yeah. Where do you think we're at tonight? An IRA place. Why are we here? They've got about $2 billion under management of people's old self-directed 401ks turned self-directed IRAs that you can do what with? You can invest. So, and some of you guys, if any of you guys have had any type of a separation of employment over the last couple years, you know what the beautiful thing about that is? You can roll over your IRA. You've taken your IRA and you can just set it free and you can use it to invest in anything you want except for life insurance. You can't invest in dead people. And collectibles. So that's a great way to be able to fund a deal. Of course, your own cash and loans that can be converted into longer term loans. So if you're borrowing from a hard money lender, great. Make sure that hard money lender is not going to foreclose on you if PAL goes full Volcker, right? And just remember on those fix and flips, you have a short amount of time to force value and get in and get out. So you have to manage the clock, which means if you are doing it yourself, I don't want to see any of you guys, I don't want to see any of you guys doing it yourself, but if you do, I don't want you to see any of you guys doing it yourself after you get off work, which is somewhere between 5 and 6 p.m., and then it's starting to get a little, it's cooler now, right? So you're not, in a sauna in a house without electricity right now, but it's also getting darker earlier. So your days get compressed, which means your timeline gets extended. So manage the clock, especially in uncertain markets. Considering your buy and hold. So I love this quote. Any mistake that you make on the buy by overpaying, right, can be remedied with time and appreciation. So not as severe of pain when it comes to buying and holding. And many people survived, and I'm curious, were any of you guys investing in 2006, 2007, 2008? Okay, a couple of you guys. I saw a lot of real estate investors survive with their fix and flips by just getting a long-term loan in place, and they weren't planning on being landlords, but they became landlords. And the ones that had that long-term financing in place were able to survive that long stretch, right, through 2011, 2012, that was in some cases quite painful. So many people turned a would-be flip into a rental. We'll probably see that again in 2022 and 2023. So make sure that that's on your radar as well.